Sir Winston introduces the ghosts of Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth II, a hilarious spectral encounter. It was a chilly, moonlit evening in Westminster, the fog curling lazily around the ancient spires of Parliament. Within its stone walls, the ghost of Sir Winston Churchill puffed on a cigar, his eyes glinting mischievously. He'd just received word that two new spirits would be arriving soon. Familiar faces to him, though he hadn't seen them in quite a while. None other than Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth II. This narrative is sponsored by Polly Speaks For You. The creator of Polly Speaks For You has always been passionate about empowering individuals, especially those with disabilities or learning challenges, through text-to-speech and voice recognition technology. Polly Speaks For You isn't just a tool. It's a bridge for people to communicate and interact with the world in a meaningful way. By blending historical storytelling with cutting-edge tech, the creator showcases how powerful a voice can be, whether telling your own story or preserving history. So hit that like, share, and subscribe button and help this channel grow. Now back to the story. Winston adjusted his ghostly bow tie, chuckling to himself. "Ah, this will be quite the reunion," he muttered. "The old gang's all here." And with a puff of smoke, he disappeared into the ethereal corridors, heading to meet his royal friends. The arrival of the royals. As the clock struck midnight, a faint shimmer appeared at the entrance to the House of Commons. The ghostly forms of Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth II materialized, looking as regal as ever in their spectral state. Elizabeth was draped in her favorite pastel coat, while Philip, ever the sharp dresser, sported his naval uniform. "Westminster looks, well, the same," Philip remarked dryly, inspecting his surroundings. "Though I didn't expect to be back here in ghost form. Did you, Lilibet?" The Queen gave a gentle laugh. "No, but I suppose one mustn't be surprised when it comes to this place. Always full of surprises." At that moment, Churchill's booming voice echoed through the chamber. "Your Majesties, welcome to the Afterlife version of Westminster." Winston appeared in a puff of smoke, his broad figure filling the room. He bowed dramatically before breaking into a wide grin. "I've been waiting for this day. It's been far too long since we had a proper chat." Elizabeth smiled warmly. "Winston, how wonderful to see you again. Though I must say, this is quite unexpected." "Unexpected?" Churchill waved his hand dismissively. "Nonsense, my dear. Death is just a new adventure, especially here in Westminster. You'll soon learn that the afterlife is far more entertaining than anyone ever let on. And with you two joining the club, well, the fun's only just beginning." Philip raised an eyebrow. "Fun? In Westminster? Now that I've got to see." The tour begins. Churchill wasted no time in leading the royal couple on a grand tour of the ghostly version of Parliament. As they floated through the hallowed halls, they passed a number of familiar figures, some of whom were caught in endless debates. "Over there," Churchill said, pointing to a group of ghostly MPs. "You've got Pitt the Younger still arguing with Fox about taxes. Honestly, I'm amazed they haven't come to blows yet." Philip chuckled. "Well, if they had, at least they couldn't be any more dead." The Queen gave him a reproachful look, though even she couldn't hide a small smile. "Philip, really?" Churchill grinned. "You're going to fit in just fine, Philip. Now, if you think that's amusing, wait until you see what happens in the House of Lords after dark." The trio glided into the grand chamber, where a scene of chaos awaited them. Ghostly lords were bickering over the correct temperature for the afterlife tea service, while a group of long-departed monarchs were playing an impromptu game of croquet with invisible mallets. "Oh, look," Elizabeth said with a smirk. "There's Henry VIII. Still can't get enough attention, I see." Churchill nodded. "He insists on being the king of the ghosts. It's all terribly tiresome, but we humor him. It keeps him from haunting the kitchens again." "Haunting the kitchens?" Philip asked, incredulous. "Indeed," Churchill said, eyes twinkling. "Last time, he demanded an entire banquet for himself, roast swan and all. The cooks weren't happy, let me tell you." The ghostly pub. After a few more stops, including a peek at the Spectral library, where every book ever written, and a few that weren't, was available for perusal, Churchill led them to the most notorious haunt of all, the ghostly pub beneath Westminster. The sign above the door flickered in and out of view, reading The Spectre's Pint. Inside, the pub was full of ghostly figures from across the ages, all enjoying a drink or two or 10. Shakespeare was reciting sonnets to a bored-looking Boudica, while Charles Dickens complained about the lack of Christmas decorations. At the bar, Sir Francis Drake was arm-wrestling with Lord Nelson, both, of course, translucent. "Ah, my favorite spot," Churchill said with a sigh of contentment. "This, my dear friends, is where the real fun happens." The Queen, who rarely indulged in anything more than a small glass of Dubonnet and gin, looked mildly curious. Philip, on the other hand, grinned broadly. "I've always said," Philip declared, "you can judge a man's ghost by his drink of choice. What'll it be, Winston?" Churchill winked and snapped his fingers. Instantly, 3 glasses of whiskey appeared on the table before them. Only the finest for Her Majesty and the Duke, of course. Elizabeth hesitated before picking up her glass. "I suppose, seeing as we're ghosts, there's no harm in indulging a little." "That's the spirit," Philip exclaimed, taking a hearty swig. "Quite literally, in this case." Hilarity ensues. As the night went on, the laughter in the pub grew louder and louder. Churchill regaled the Windsors with stories of ghostly pranks he'd pulled on living MPs. There was the time he'd rearranged all the papers on the Chancellor's desk, leading to a rather awkward budget announcement. Or the time he'd haunted Big Ben, making it chime at random intervals, much to the confusion of tourists. "Winston," Elizabeth said through giggles, "you've been very busy, haven't you?" "Oh, I have to keep myself entertained, Your Majesty," Churchill replied, his eyes twinkling with mischief. "And now that you're here, I suspect the mischief will only double." Philip, ever the prankster, leaned forward. "Winston, what do you say we haunt Buckingham Palace next? I've always wanted to sneak up on one of those footmen." Churchill's grin grew even wider. "Now that is a brilliant idea. Imagine the look on their faces when they see you, or don't see you, floating through the halls." Elizabeth shook her head in mock disapproval, though the glint in her eyes betrayed her amusement. "Honestly, the two of you. It's a good thing I'm here to keep you in line." "Oh, Lilibet," Philip teased, "you've always been the sensible one. But admit it, you'd enjoy a little ghostly mischief." The Queen chuckled, lifting her glass. "Perhaps, just a little." The legacy continues. As the ghostly trio continued to laugh and share stories, it became clear that their afterlife would be anything but dull. With Sir Winston leading the charge and the Windsors by his side, Westminster's spectral inhabitants had never been more lively or hilarious. From that night on, the halls of Parliament were filled with the sounds of ghostly chuckles, whispered pranks, and the occasional burst of royal laughter. And whenever an MP felt a strange chill in the air or heard a distant laugh echoing through the chamber, they knew the ghost of Sir Winston Churchill, along with his royal companions, was up to something once again. Long may they reign, in both the living world and the spectral one, where the whiskey never runs dry, the cigars always glow, and the mischief never ends. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. To learn more about South Africa's leading accessibility software, visit www.polispeaks4u.co.za and support this meaningful dyslexic initiative. Thank you for watching.